With the release of Mass Effect Legendary Edition, a lot of new players got to experience the trilogy for the first time. But it also brought back the original players. Here are 15 facts about Mass Effect that even the most diehard fans may not know. Number 15. LucasArts approached BioWare to make a Star Wars game, giving the producers at BioWare the choice of either making a game after the events of Star Wars Episode II, focusing on the Clone Wars, or create a game hundreds of years before the events of the first Star Wars movie. BioWare chose the latter, and while working on Knights of the Old Republic, it gave the producers the idea of creating their own interstellar universe. Thanks to the massive success of Knights of the Old Republic, which is commonly referred to as the best Star Wars game, EA gave the green light for BioWare to create their own IP. Number 14. Mark Meer, the voice behind iconic male Commander Shepard, also voices many other characters in the Mass Effect franchise.
I'm sorry. I know that was important, but...
Mark also lends his vocal talents to the Vorcha.
We kill you first!
The Hanar.
This one departs now, and will not intrude upon the Presidium again.
The child at the end of Mass Effect 3, overlaid with female Shepard voice actress Jennifer Hale.
Do what you must.
And many other characters.
I'll talk to you later.
Number 13. The original ending of Mass Effect 3 was supposed to be different. The developers' original idea was for the crew of the Normandy to heroically make that last charge with Commander Shepard and die in the process. This would have been a very emotional ending to not only the game, but also a fitting end story to the trilogy. This end would have elevated the series more and might have lessened the blowback from the original ending. Number 12. Originally, Garrus Vakarian was never intended to be a romance option, as evident from Mass Effect 1. His role was meant to be a hardened soldier. The developers felt that players had enough alien romance choices already.
I want something to go right. Just once.
But after the original Mass Effect was released, diehard fans wouldn't stop about how they wanted Garrus as a romance option. Gamers who pursue the Garrus romance have fan art to thank for showing the developers the want and need for this relationship. The Mass Effect creative director admitted that seeing the fan art and fan fiction about Shepard and Garrus made them rethink the relationship and write it into Mass Effect 2. This is one of those rare moments in video game history where the fans not only got what they wanted, but it added a layer of depth to two characters the developers were not even thinking about, creating arguably the best romance in the Mass Effect franchise.
I love you, Garrus Vakarian.
Number 11. The developers of Mass Effect spent countless hours looking at fan art. The developers admit that it comes from genuine curiosity to know more about the fans, and how they see the series. Aside from previously mentioned Number 12's Garrus romance, there isn't any word from the developers if they used any of the ideas from said fan art to shape the events of the series. Number 10. The Salarians and Mordin Solus. The developers of Mass Effect had some fun with the creation of the Salarian race, basing their race characteristics off of the little gray men from Area 51. The developers focused the Salarian society around science to match the Greys' association with advanced technology which appears throughout pop culture. However, with the character creation of Mordin Solus, first appearing in Mass Effect 2, the developers decided to model Mordin's facial features off of Hollywood actor Clint Eastwood.
Wag hates my ass.
From the large forehead, facial scars, and the way his lips are usually tight together with a disapproved look. They really nailed it.
The very model of a scientist Solarian.
Although, don't expect Clint to break out into song anytime soon. Number 9. Stargazer.
Did that all really happen?
Yes, but some of the details have been lost in time.
The ending of Mass Effect 3 left a lot to be desired. But there is a treasure hidden just before the end credits roll.
When can I go to the stars?
One day, my sweet.
In a cutscene, on an unnamed planet, we are introduced to Stargazer and his grandchild, telling the tale of the Shepherd.
Our galaxy has billions of stars.
What most people don't realize is that Stargazer is voiced by none other than Buzz Aldrin. As in one of the most famous space explorers, the second man to ever walk on the moon, astronaut Buzz Aldrin.
And every life is a special story of its own.
Number 8. Love Happens. Romance has always been a huge part of BioWare games. And Mass Effect is no exception. If a player chooses not to pursue certain romantic options, or chooses to ignore the romance side of the game completely, love will still blossom on the Normandy. With or without Shepard, players will see a relationship start between Tali and Garrus. And throughout the series, here their relationships start to take shape, and eventually getting together in the main battery.
I think one of my mandibles got hooked on her helmet.
If both Engineer Gabby and Engineer Ken survive Mass Effect 2's suicide mission, and are allowed to join the Normandy in Mass Effect 3, you might walk into a makeout session.
Carry on.
If Ashley survives Vermeer, and joins the Normandy crew in Mass Effect 3, Ashley and Vega will hook up during the big party in the Citadel DLC.
Thanks, that's sweet. I think you're kind of sweet.
Number 7. You want to call it what? The simple name, Mass Effect, carries a lot of weight, history, and loyalty in the video gaming world. However, during production, this series was almost called Science Fiction X, sounding like a cheesy 1940s sci-fi movie. The biggest issue was that the developers kept the name for so long during production, they were reluctant to change it. They even thought of shortening the name down to SFX. The developers came up with 10 finalists for the name, with Mass Effect eventually winning over the other names because the game is built around the energy fields that drive most of the technology. The name just made sense when you think about it. Name it after the most powerful thing in the universe. Number 6. The Quarians. Introduced in the original Mass Effect, and being prominent characters through the trilogy, the Quarians have had a large impact in the franchise. Tali Zora has been a fan favorite in all 3 games. The Quarian race have always held a certain mystique, always being in full, self-contained environmental bodysuits. We never get to see what the race actually looks like. The developers had plans to finally reveal what the Quarians look like in Mass Effect 3. Players who chose to romance Tali in Mass Effect 3 were given a cutscene, just before launching the final mission, where Shepard picks up a picture frame containing a picture of Tali, unmasked. Players were quick to blast BioWare for the picture used, as it turned out to be a free stock image found on Getty Images. What's even more shocking with this entire scene, is just how tacked on entire scene feels, especially in a series that had put so much care, thought, and effort into all 3 games. This image was changed with the release of Mass Effect, Legendary Edition. Number 5. EDI's inspiration. When making Mass Effect 3, the developers decided to model EDI's new body from the classic 1927 movie, Metropolis. In the film, Maria's consciousness is transferred to the Icon robot, much like EDI's was in Mass Effect. A lot of parallels between the film and the game series can be drawn. Metropolis tackles the plight of the working class struggling to get by while the rich seem unconcerned. Mass Effect deals with organic versus synthetic life and if both can coexist peacefully together. Metropolis not only served as a base model for the developers to draw from artistically, but the film's themes also apply to the Mass Effect series. Number 4. Showdown with the Elusive Man. The original plan was to have the fight to save the galaxy run right through the Elusive Man, with Cerberus being the organization that were fully aware of what the Reaper's final plans were, indoctrinated and actively trying to stop Shepard. Having a final showdown with a fully indoctrinated Elusive Man would have been a fitting end to his story. What turned the developers off to the idea was how similar it was to the Saren fight from Mass Effect 1. Instead, they opted for an intense dialogue scene showing the Elusive Man's total surrender to indoctrination. The scene overall fits the emotional and all-encompassing end BioWare was going for. Number 3. Production budget. Developers don't like releasing total budget figures for several reasons, with the obvious one being that you can then measure how much of a success or failure a AAA game was. With that in mind, trying to find final budget estimates on the first 2 games is tough.
We've already been down that road. No more.
Somehow the total figures were released, either by an internal leak or otherwise, that it cost around $40 million to make Mass Effect 3. BioWare had to spend a lot more money on the final installment than any previous Mass Effect game, because everything had to be right from the improved mechanics, better graphics, and the over-the-top expectations. While $40 million may not sound like a huge budget for a AAA game in 2021, back in 2012, when the game was released, it was considered a large amount, especially for a game being released on Microsoft's Xbox 360, Sony's PlayStation 3, and Nintendo's Wii U. To put this number into context, Mass Effect, Andromeda had a production budget of around $100 million in 2017. Number 2. The music. BioWare knew they needed to go big when it came to Mass Effect 3, and that also meant the music, so they brought in Clint Mansell. Mansell is a well-known composer in Hollywood, but he made the jump to video games with Mass Effect 3. Jack Wall was the composer for the first 2 games, but he stepped aside to allow Mansell to create the best soundtrack of the series. It was Mansell's first video game, and he admitted he was excited to expand his horizons and try new types of media. Fans of Mansell's work know him from his work with Darren Aronofsky on Requiem for a Dream and Black Swan. BioWare wanted a big impact soundtrack to go with their trilogy ending game, and they got it from Mansell. It's a pretty good guess as to where some of that $40 million went, and it was money well spent. Number 1. Commander Shepard. The Mass Effect series used a blend of vocal artists and models to create many of the characters throughout the series. While some characters were shaped to look like the actor or actress providing that character's voice, some characters were based off of professional models who looked nothing like the voice actor. For the most part, the actors and models have really embraced their role in the Mass Effect series. The outlier in this group is Dutch model, Mark Vanderloo, for whom the male commander Shepard was modeled after. Unlike the other character models and voice actors from the games, Vanderloo has never appeared in any of the promotional materials for the games. He has also never attended a public event in support of Mass Effect. He is on record refusing to appear in full N7 armor at a cosplay event. He is the real-life person for whom male Shepard is modeled after, arguably one of the most iconic characters in gaming history,